Here's the new Telemark filter module from Analogue Solutions, which is based on the standalone Telemark synthesizer, again from Analogue Solutions. I'll go through the features and the sounds, as well as creating a bass line, some phaser sounds, audio rate modulation, and using multiple outputs for a stereo patch. Going through the features first, I've got a saw wave plugged in and just taking a single output. We've got low pass, high pass, band pass and notch filter outputs. There's an input gain as well, which affects the filter's tone and response. So here's the filter's outputs quickly. We've got control of the notch balance. There's one CV input with attenuation, plus an additional 2 CV inputs as well. Moving to CV1 and the notch filter's output, there's a Q switch which changes the feedback intensity in the resonance circuit, giving 2 different tonal characters from one filter. And there's also a gain switch which opens up the input gain to the filter, which adds a lot of gain to drive that filter, and the output isn't compensated for the volume boost, so you can get a really nice boost through the module as well. So let's get stuck into the sound. Here's the low pass filter with 0 resonance. Then resonance around a quarter. Around halfway. Resonance around 9 o'clock. And then full resonance. Here's the high pass with 0 resonance. Then around 3 o'clock. Then halfway. And resonance around 9 o'clock. And the full resonance really sings and doesn't get out of hand as it can do on some other modules. Here's the band pass with those different resonance changes. Here's the notch output with the notch blend, and depending on where the blend is and the peak control for the resonance, there's a really nice range of sounds that feel very responsive and interactive between the 2 knobs. So let's get stuck into some patches and creating a bass line here. I've got a mix of oscillators all being mixed before the filter, turning up the input level to the filter. I've got the gain switch up so I can really drive that filter's input, and here's the sound of the low pass. So it's really fat and thick with a really great resonance sound as well. Turning up CV1's input level, I've got an envelope modulating the filter, giving us some thick plucked bass sounds. And you can hear the sound clean up as we back the gain off at the input. Turning down CV1's modulation, I've got a sample and hold going into CV input 2. And then mixing the envelope and the sample and hold modulation, we can get a more dynamic sequence. Here's just the envelope again. And then some sample and hold again as well. patch, and I'm going to take the high pass output. And here's the sound of the band pass with the same patch. Now I'll look at the response of the CV inputs with some audio rate modulation. I've just got a static waveform going into the audio input, and I've got an LFO going into CV input 1. And I'll turn up this LFO rate now. Adding in some resonance adds a lot of character to the sound when it's modulated at audio rate. And there's a nice interaction between the CV level and the resonance. Sticking with audio rate modulation at CV input 1, I'll add an envelope to CV input 2. And moving from the bandpass output, which we've had so far in this patch, here's the sound of the low pass. Looking at the notch mode in more detail now, I'll create some thick and rich phaser style sounds. Here's my audio input, which is a mix of some modular drums and sequences. Turning up the resonance and playing around with a notch blend, here's the sound. And the Q switch gives us a different tone again by varying the feedback intensity in the resonance circuit. And turning up CV1's input attenuator, I've got an LFO modulating the cutoff, giving us some phaser style sounds. As we've got 4 outputs on the filter, as it's multi-mode, we can use these all at once. So I'm going to use 2 outputs at a time to create some stereo patching. You might have to watch this in high quality on YouTube for the stereo audio. Turning up the input, you can hear what's coming into the filter. And I'm using the low pass and high pass here, so turning the cutoff down is going to close those high frequencies and cut those off in the low pass mode, but it's going to open up the low end in the high pass mode. Turning the cutoff back up will open up the high frequencies in the low pass and close off and filter out those low frequencies on the high pass output. Here's an LFO into CV1, and I'll play around with some audio rate speeds right down to LFO range. So you should be hearing the sound pan around as the LFO modulates the cutoff. Moving on to the bandpass and notch filter outputs, I'll play around again with the Q and the resonance and the blend of the notch. I'm really impressed with the filter as it's got a great sound that can be really thick and driven with a gain switch, or more subtle and creamy with a range of resonance available and a lower input gain. The Q switch provides a great alternative tone to the filter, and you can see it responds to CV right through audio rate really well. Check out analoguesolutions.com for more information, and for more videos from me head to youtube.com/divkidvideo.